Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Remain Undefinable podcast. I'm your host, Sadie Gibbs, and today we're going to be getting into more of my background without specifying it. So I want to go into, because a lot of you know that I'm a professional wrestler. I did have a 4-year gap during the pandemic. My story is such a great story that I just want to share it. Because it really is. This is a big comeback story, and yeah, just want to share it because a lot of people didn't know I was back, and I think it'd just be good to kind of get this in because it's obviously a big part of who I am today and how I've become the Undefinable and how this brand's evolved. And yeah, I just think it would be a nice thing to talk to you guys about. But my journey, so I always knew I wanted to be a coach. I become a coach at very young. As soon as I left school, I did a diploma in, sports therapy and personal training. And I just went on to volunteer until I had a full-time personal training job at the age of 18. And from that, I just was submerged in that world. I loved coaching and just physically being active. It's where I'm in my element. But bodybuilding started to become a big rage at that time. So back in like 2014, I think it was 2013, 2014, I started bodybuilding at the age of 19, 18. So I was like in my career for 2 years, and I started getting really interested in aesthetics and how your body looks and how you could completely shape your body. Not always the best mindset to adhere and be fixated on, because I think aesthetics now come with focus on being on the training and your nutrition. And with bodybuilding, your focus is very much on the nutrition, but not in the most positive way. If anything, it's all about control, and it's not something I would coach or advise people to do now. I think nutrition should be enjoyed, and I think you should have a really good relationship with food, which will be an episode down the line where I talk about relationship with food. I know I've touched on that in previous episodes, but that was when I really started to enjoy performing. And that was a performance in itself, getting on stage. And I think since a young age of being a gymnast for nearly 8 years, I've always been a performer. You know, people used to call me a show off, but I think as a gymnast, you don't learn all that stuff not to show it off. So yeah, there was always a performer in me since I've been a kid. And I'd just show off in front of my dad's friends, in front of, my mum's friends as a kid. I'd just come down doing handstands everywhere. And even when I started in a gym, my best friend says to this day, because she was a coach there, that you'd just be mid-set and your legs are in the air and you're doing a handstand. It's just who I've always been. But 4 years into the bodybuilding world, I kind of got to a stalemate where I was like, I need a change. In between this, I was doing a lot of modelling stuff, and it's always been an ambition of mine, modelling, and I've always enjoyed it. So I was still doing castings, and, I was signed to a sports modelling agency at that point as well. So it's kind of always been a hustle for me, a side hustle in everything else that I'm doing, that kind of world. So when I went into wrestling, it's kind of like everything come together for me. I was like, I can be it all. I can do it all in this business. I feel just so aligned with what now is my undefinable being and everything, where I like to just kind of break outside the box. I don't like to fit one box. And I'm in the point where I'm trying to transition out of the bodybuilding world. It being quite toxic for me, and it took me through a lot of things that have made me grow. It made me grow as a person, and I was kind of ready for that next chapter. That next, what's the guides in my head saying? What they're telling me? And I was on a social media app, and I don't know what one it was. It could have been Instagram. I come across this clip of Nikki Bella and Natalia, and they were having a backstage feud. So it would have been around 2016, 2017. And I was like, oh my God, I want to do that. That's me. And I applied for a WWE Tryout directly after seeing that. I just found myself on the website applying. I didn't really know anything about the indie scene, nothing at all. So I had a WWE tryout. I applied for one. I got the tryout. They said I'm everything they would hire. I just need to go away and prove it's what I kind of want. So I kind of kept that in my head, and I just found so much grace once I started wrestling. It was like, this is me. This is meant to be. It just all aligned, and I just felt like my life was just set on fire. And I just enjoyed every day. It was a process for me. And yeah, I fell in love with it. So they said I'm everything they would hire. I then got told about the indie scenes. I went and explored. I went to my first ever indie show, which was Progress. That was something that was like, wow. And I was just like, again, more passion, I just could not wait to submerge myself into it. It wasn't the easiest show. It wasn't the easiest industry to break into, especially when you started with a tryout. It didn't really get the best reception coming from getting a tryout when you're not a wrestler, knowing how hard all these wrestlers are working in the indie promotion just to get that tryout, you know. But the thing is, the way I look at things now is everyone has a different journey. So whereas I had grafted my whole life as a gymnast, and, you know, a lot of tears, a lot of blood, sweat, tears in gymnastics and everything else that I'd done, which had then aligned my path to wrestling, others don't tend to see that. They see that their path and then they project that. So I like to have an open mind and go, well, I wonder what journey someone's had to now get to this point where they're doing this and it's transitioned into this. So yeah, it was quite a hard industry to kind of break into, as they call it, a lot of heat you may get, but I just gave it my all. I called myself the Amazing Grace. Mainly my song was I Once Was Lost But Now I'm Found. It started with that and then broke into like quite a drop, which it just the whole thing I created. And this is where you got to be good. You're a brand, and all the time as brands evolve, you have to be evolving with your brand, which is yourself, especially as a performer and in that world. And I started getting all these bookings in Europe. Within the first 3 years, I was traveling. I'd traveled Europe. I'd been to Switzerland. I'd been to Holland. I'd been to Germany. I'd traveled the majority of Europe as well as all across the UK. And yeah, it was just the most amazing thing. I'd fallen in love, and within 3 years, I was invited to Stardom in Japan, and this was a bittersweet situation. So my granddad got very ill. Once I'd got the invite, he was already in hospital for a good few months, and I remember speaking to him saying, I'm going to Japan. And as I said, I'm not sure whether I should go because, you know, he wasn't in a good way. And he told me to go. And then after that, when I'd left, apparently he'd stopped being able to talk. And he just deteriorated very, very quickly. And within 3 weeks of being in Japan, he passed away. And I got the call. And I remember I was staying out there trying to do however long till the funeral was coming. And then when I found out the funeral date, that was it. I just wanted to get home. And we're sitting in a theme park. It was like a Universal, I think, watching the wows. And I remember just feeling like I wasn't in my body. And I mean, that's probably the first time I've ever experienced grief, other than my mum and dad breaking up when I was younger, probably. But I don't really think you understand it then. But real grief, like losing someone, never knowing you're never going to see him again. I get goosebumps now when I talk about it. That was probably the first time I'd ever experienced that. And for me, it was I just had to get home. Like, that's all I knew. In that moment, I was like, I need to go. So I went and sat with the promoter and I said, I'm going to need to get back. My granddad's funeral soon, and, you know, I'm going to need to be back for it. And the promoter said, you stay, it's business. And I remember I took that so, it just put me in like fight or flight. And when I say fight or flight, it just made me think, I've got to go. I've got to get going. I'm not staying. And rather than communicating that, because I just think I wasn't great at communicating back then, my emotions, it just was overwhelming. I just ran, I guess. And I was just like, I'm going, change my flights. Not the best way to leave. And now, you know, being a lot more mature and a lot more aware of myself and stuff, I would have handled the situation completely different and said, I wouldn't have asked to leave. I would have said, I need to go. My granddad's funeral, I'm leaving. But we learn. And flying back, within a week or 2 weeks of getting this news, I'm then have a contract in my emails from All Elite Wrestling. And again, another bittersweet. It was like wow, this is unreal. But at the same time, I hadn't grieved my granddad, and it was just all a lot, but amazing at the same time. But it's that kind of thing where you don't get to face and deal with things. So yeah, signed, had my first year traveling to America and back, and it was amazing, unreal. I did get imposter syndrome, as we say. I think it's when you get to that point that you've been working towards, but really you haven't done all the character work along the way, or you haven't done enough character work. So when you get to that point, you're self-worth tested, and you're at a point where you're like, your anxiety and all your fears and everything become bigger than all the excitement and the feeling of being worthy of that achievement, and that accomplishment in your life. And the fun was sucked out of it for me, because my anxiety was just, it was a battle every day. Like the anxiety I'd have on the way to the shows and during the shows and the way back, it just override every performance as well. And we can say we're not ready for an opportunity, and I really don't think I was ready for that. I think I still had a lot of growth to do and a lot of work to do, but everything happens for a reason. And I got to live out that dream for a year, and it was unreal. And then obviously I was all ready to pack up and leave to go to the States. I'd made a decision I'm moving to the States, which was huge. I packed up my fitness business. I completely closed down any other work that I was doing. I've always been a bit of an entrepreneur. It's an entrepreneurial mindset where I can sort of turn my head to anything. As I say, you never plan a plan B, you just plan forwards, you fail forwards. Always turn your head to something new and know what you need to do at that moment of time. That's kind of how I live my life, and it's always worked out for me. And so always had a bit of an entrepreneurial mindset. So I was able to, I shut down everything else that I was doing, because I had so many other things I was doing. I was, PT, and I was working for different gyms. I was doing boot camps. I was doing so many things. I shut down all of that, and I was like, okay, I'm putting all my eggs in this basket. I've got to believe in it. I've got to give it 100%. We went into the pandemic on the 24th, I can't remember the exact date, of March 2021. And, was it 2020? March 2020. And my flight was booked. No, my flight was booked for around the 23rd, 24th. And we went into the lockdown on around the 20th, 21st. And I couldn't fly. So that was that. And, I don't think any of us thought it would go on as long as it did. But it went on longer than we thought. And by that point, I'd sold my car. I was still doing things to get ready to go to the States. I was buying a house that I was putting a deposit down for. I had all that going through because I just wanted a bit of security here. Come August 2020, I get a call saying that I've been released from my contract. Absolute heartbreak. And within 3 days later, the house falls through because the underwriters have seen that I've been released from my contract, and obviously I was securing it based off that. And my whole world just felt like it fell apart in that moment. And I think, being the person I am, I'm very much survival instinct. Like I said, I'll turn my head to whatever I need to keep going. So I was like, I've got to start my fitness business back up. I've got to put all my focus into that. That's what's going to bring the income, and turn my head to that. So focusing fully on my fitness business, and my goal was still to move out, because that was what I wanted. I was ready to move out. So no matter what had changed, something within me was saying, you still need to move out. But I had to rent, using all the money I'd saved from my mortgage. I then used all that to get started getting my new place. I managed to get a new place because I made that my focus. And that time, someone was telling me to teach. So I got a job, specifically in a prison, which was 5 minutes away from where I was living, where I'd moved to. And I was kind of juggling that with my fitness business, my PT, and just finding my feet again. And that was that was like 2021 through to the end of 2021. And then I remember there was a point in late 2021, and I was I was sitting there and I was, I'd racked up a bit of debt. I was at a point where I was just thinking, I'm going to lose everything. Like everything I've worked for, I'm going to lose it all. And both dogs got really unwell. They ate something off my neighbour's garden, which she had put out to poison the foxes. And I got a big vet's bill come in, and I just thought, I'm going to lose everything. And then there was this breaking point. I had a discussion with my dad, and he's always been quite tough love. Like if you can't handle the situation, you've got to leave the house, or And then I just remember saying to my dad, I'm gonna watch me double my income this month. And I just said that, watch me double my income this month. I didn't know what I was gonna do. I got off the phone and I got a text from a friend saying, would you like to start? I'm now working with OnlyFans. Would you like to start an OF platform? And, OnlyFans will promote you and push you. And I did. I got all the push with OF at that time because it was very new, I think, with signing athletes and things. And I launched it, and within a week, I had 300 subscribers at £30 a month. And from that moment onwards, that I just started to get back on my feet. I love modelling, so I really enjoyed it. Since being a baby, I've kind of always liked taking my clothes off, so that I'm just joking, but I do. I think you should express your body and be comfortable in your body, and I fully embrace my sexuality, and I do like the more sensual sexual side of modelling and glamour, so it aligned with me and it worked. And the only reason I wasn't doing it for all that time is because of that whole thing of what other people think, but yet we're sitting there thinking we're going to lose everything. We got this whole platform that could, not anyone could just launch that and do that well. But I had this whole opportunity that was sitting there for me that I did really well in, and it just grew for me. And that's when I started to feel like I could get back to wrestling. I had that time again. I had that extra time. I was able to get back on my feet. I was able to start clearing some debt. I was getting myself back, getting back to where I was, where I could push through fear and not be in survival mode. And I'm so grateful for OnlyFans. I love the platform and it's been amazing for me. It is a business. It does require a lot of work. That's why not anyone can just do it. It is a consistent business where you have to work it and be very proactive. I've had a lot of agencies wanting to sign with me and take over, but the way I see it is it's my business. I'm not signing over another percentage just out of nowhere. And especially when I built that following and that good membership base for this many years. I've been on it. I've been doing that for 3 years alongside my coaching business and everything that I'm still doing. And that is why I call myself the Undefinable now, and I changed it to Undefinable Living, because the way I live my life and the way I've always uplifted others is to always embrace what's aligned with you at that moment of time. Don't make it a part of you. Don't make it where you are defined by it, because you may find that you are going to transition out of that again into something completely different, and it is going to fade out in divine timing, and you are going to be on a new path, and it is going to be the next thing that's going to help you get into where you're going. Just don't put so much stigma and limited beliefs around certain opportunities that could completely change your life, because as long as it aligns with you, who gives a fuck? If it aligns with you, it's going to uplift you, it's going to build your confidence, it's going to get you back on the right path. There is no right and wrong. There's no black and white. There's a grey area that a lot of people are afraid to live in. Once you start living in that grey area and you start making the most of it, your life will start to change, because you're trusting the process. You're trusting in yourself. You're believing in the journey. You're believing in the path. You are open-minded to the opportunities and the abundance that can come your way. And your life will start to transform. 100%. So I did that for the first 2 years. I was hiring videographers, photographers. I was putting the work in for that platform. I was investing a lot. I was able to build my 2 websites that I've now got, undefinabledliving.com and sadiegibbs.com. So I separated the 2 brands, which was a big goal of mine to do. And then I met a partner who I felt was the one. Everything aligned very quickly. We travelled and he was the one actually said to me when I was talking about wrestling, because I never stopped talking about it. And I said, oh, I was talking about it as always. And he turned around and said, why aren't you wrestling? You're a coward. And he said, why aren't you doing it? You talk about all this, you should do what you want to do. And I remember I was like, and it just planted a seed. And I was like, he's right. I'm scared. I want to do it, but I'm not doing it because there's so many fears there. Like when we go through a heartbreak in relationships, there's so many fears that hold us back from loving again the same or giving ourselves the same. I think I had that in wrestling, where I couldn't give myself fully to the business again, because I did get my heart broken. I did get to a certain point where I've had to climb my way back up again and climb my way back and reinvent myself and, rebrand myself and everything. And I think part of me did go through massive heartbreak with that, and I had a lot of limiting beliefs and fears towards it, and I couldn't push through my ego. I couldn't push through it. And anyway, so he planted the seed. We very quickly got engaged. And then I announced that I'm going back to wrestling shortly after that, because I guess I felt like I had security, a little bit of security. Everything was kind of falling into place. Me going back to wrestling, I think this is my personal opinion, it showed where the relationship wasn't secure and wasn't what I thought it was, because it wasn't able to support my hyper focus that was needed. Wrestling needed 199% of me. It did. For me to go back and push through myself, it needed 99% of me. So yeah, I needed that security in knowing that I could pursue my wrestling goals. And there's a reason it took me so long to finally push back and get back. I had a lot of fear to push through, and as we all know, fear is the lack of self-belief and the lack of self-worth that we have within ourselves, and the lack of faith. And it takes so much to build that up. And if you're being pulled in other directions, it's just too much. So the relationship took a big shift the moment I wanted to go back. And, that broke down. It went very bad, very toxic. Mentally, it broke my heart. And that was over a period of months. And around Christmas, I didn't even spend Christmas at home. I was at my nan's on my own because it was all last minute, and it was just the worst Christmas ever. And my mum then, I think the day before New Year's Eve, got rushed by an air ambulance. She had dropped down in the garden with a blood clot to the heart. And my brother spent 20 minutes CPR. And we nearly lost her. And it was a miracle that she had survived. Even the air ambulance doctor came and see her in the hospital, and he just said, this is unheard of. I can't believe, but for 2 weeks we thought we were losing her. We thought, she was in an ICU unit, and the news was not getting more positive. It was, we thought we were going to lose her. And before all this, I hadn't booked my flights yet to Japan for the comeback that I had planned, and I had my visa all sorted. Because it was like a repeat scenario when my granddad was in hospital, but I just thought, I can't leave until I know she's 100% okay. I just can't do it. And anyway, she pulled through and come round. She was doing much better. She was coming out of it. So I just felt, okay, I can go. Me and my fiance at the time, we'd started talking again, obviously, given what I was going through. He'd come and was being more supportive. And then the moment I'm going to Japan again, it just got really bad again. And to the point where I feel like I'm escaping my home. I'm packing not only to go to Japan, but I'm packing to put everything in storage, and even though I pay rent there, I just had to get all my stuff out. It was just carnage and a complete and utter heartbreak. Absolute heartbreak. And I thought that was my person. He's the first person I've ever got engaged to. And so yeah, I went to Japan completely heartbroken. Not only that, facing my first match back in wrestling after 3-4 years, nearly 3.5 years. I in my opinion, I smashed it in Japan. I'm so happy with how I did, and I've had an amazing coach up to that point. My coach with Catch 22, I couldn't be more grateful for what he did for me. You know, we trained twice a week, 2.5 hours a week each session, so 5 hours a week we trained for nearly 4 or 5 months, if not longer, I think. Yeah, before Japan. And yeah, I just got through it. And I think when Japan tour started coming to an end, before that though, I ended up going to America with Marvelous as well. I ended up getting to perform in America for 2 different promotions, which was insane and completely like out the blue. So I was in America for two promotions, flew back to Japan, and then I had another show, and then I was coming home. And after that last show in Japan, I just remember it was an 8-hour coach trip back, and I just remember crying the most of the way with my hood up, headphones in, just hiding in the corner and on the coach driving home. I think it was generally exhaustion from the tour, but also because I'd battled myself to stay strong that whole time I was out there, because deep down I'm going through a complete heartbreak, and just knowing what I'm coming home to. I was looking for a house the whole time I was out there, rather than just being able to focus on wrestling. I'm looking for a new home. I eventually get home. That falls through. The day before I'm coming back, they say, the landlord's changed his mind. So I come back, I'm laughing, but I was a broken mess. And just going back to it now, I'm shaking. So I message friends, and they say I can come live with them with my dogs, because obviously I had 2 dogs at that point, which we'll get into in a minute. And I moved in with them. That was actually where I was storing my stuff. Put the rest of my stuff that I had left there into storage. And I'm living out of a spare room there, and very grateful for that as well. It's very, it's unbelievable the people that show up for you when you're going through a hard time. It really shows you the sort of people you want in your life and around you at that point. And 3 weeks of living there, I am still looking for a home. I get a call back from that house saying that it's back on the market. Do you want it? I was like, I knew that was the house. That's why I was so gutted when it fell through. I knew I was meant to have it. Anyway, so this is the house that I'm in now. And I said yes. Yeah, we went through it all and sorted all the paperwork, and I was in here within 4 weeks of being back. What a roller coaster. I move into here, and then my dog, the biggest one, Luna, starts limping and just gradually getting worse and worse with her health. She starts having seizures and head tremors. And anyway, that journey started with 2 referrals, finding out that she had a form of MS, which is an autoimmune disease in dogs. Long story short of it all, because that went on for 7 weeks, and that was where I broke. I think I was staying strong up until that point, and the moment she got ill, I broke. That was breaking point for me. That took every little ounce that I had holding me together. And I went into a state of, I hate using the word, but into a state of depression, where I just felt like I was constantly battling myself. I was just broken. Like, I think this year would have done that to anybody. And I don't know what I would have done without my best friend. She's my absolute rock. But yeah, and I had to say goodbye. I had to make the decision to say goodbye. And still to this day now, that's one of the hardest things I think I've ever done is make that decision. She was anyone who's got animals will know that, but she was still young. She was only 4, and she was just so special, such a special dog. Anyone that looked after her would have said it. And then I've kind of been processing that the last few months, and just getting my head around everything, letting go, and letting go of the relationship I was in and the situation, and just fully trying to surrender to everything and just trust the process, as we say. And sometimes life hits so fucking hard, and sometimes it's hard to see anything other than other than how you're feeling at that moment in time. It can be so overwhelming that you just don't want to get out of bed. You don't want to face the day. You don't want to, but this is where you have to just do it sad, do it broken, do it depressed. Keep moving forwards despite your mood. It's discipline. And as hard as that sounds, discipline's what's kept me going this year. Not my mood, because if I was to have gone off my mood, I wouldn't have moved. I wouldn't have done anything, because my mood's been down. I've not been myself. If I'd gone off my mood, I would have gave up a long time ago. I would have gave up probably before I went to Japan. But discipline and following your heart and knowing that you're going to get through it, and just believing in what you can't see. And that's when I say the source. Like, for me, I've just looked for signs in everything. And that's what you do when you're at a low point. You need things to keep you going. So that's why you believe in angel numbers. You start to believe in white feathers falling. You start to look at the synchronizations of the universe showing you that it's got your back. And yeah, and this is we're now in September, and I'm ready now. I'm mentally, physically, emotionally, I'm the strongest I've ever been. And I think once you've had the kind of battles like that with yourself, you know that nothing's gonna stop you. And the only thing that you realise when you go through all these hard times, the only thing that ever does stop you is yourself. Your perspectives, the way you view things. And yeah, we give up on ourselves. And it's so important, despite how pain is where art's created. And if you really tune into that pain and that heartbreak and just try and understand it rather than running from it, avoiding it, looking for the next distraction, next night out. I haven't been out. I haven't even drank alcohol for God knows how long. And I have just gone through everything I'm feeling for the first time ever. And the relationship I've got with myself, I don't need to go out. I don't need to be around company, especially if it's not good company. I'm very selective with who I give my energy to, my time to. You get like that. Once you start to learn that, once you face your shit and yourself, you get less tolerant of people that make excuses for why they've got so much drama in their life and why they're, you start to realise that your inner state and how you're working through in the relationship with yourself is a massively your external reality. But that's my story. I am off to Italy, where I feel like that's where I'm going to start getting the momentum back in my career. And fully now, I go Italy and then come back. I've got a match in the UK, and then I go to Japan 2 days later for another tour. And I know this tour in Japan is going to be completely different, and it's going to be, I'm just so excited and just so ready to move into the next chapter. But I want to finish this podcast on, no matter what life keeps throwing at you, no matter what obstacles you're facing, what adversity you're facing, what setbacks, what heartbreak, just know that it's all happening for you. And I know that sounds cliche, but it really is happening for you. What can you learn from it? What do you need? What work do you need to do on your character to evolve from it and to come out stronger and more aligned with your true self and your path? Because life is going to happen. It's always going to happen. And it's how we face it, how we perceive it, how we keep going through it without letting it completely tear us down. It's good to break, and it is good to, but just know that you do have to keep certain bits of your life in so that you don't go into a rut. And you have to have at least one person that you can talk to and communicate to. It's so important. I am so blessed to have had my rock, which is my best friend. Don't know what I'd do without her, but she has been my rock through this year, because she will know. She knows. She's the only one who knows. I have been in some real low points, and yeah, it gets me upset when I talk about it. But I'm still sitting here. I'm here. I'm more whole than I've ever been, because I broke my heart that I probably had so much walls around. It broke. So the only thing to do is to build it back up with either love or fear again. And I chose love this time. But thank you for listening, and remain undefinable in the process of becoming. Because if you let one little thing that's happening in your life define your outcomes going forwards, define how you act, how your life plans out because of that one obstacle, you're never going to become who you're meant to be, and who you can be, and who you're capable of being, who you feel you want to be in your heart. You'll always be stuck in who you think you are and telling a story of what happened and why you couldn't become that person that you wanted to be. So remain undefinable, and I'll see you next time.